Greetings citizens, this public service broadcast is brought to you by Anonymous. In the light of recent events, it is clear we, and by that we mean all of us, are suffering an attack on civil liberties at an alarming rate. Liberty is a concept of political philosophy, and identifies the condition in which an individual has the right to act according to his or her own will.
I think those bailouts were absolutely required to save your civilization. Now if you talk about bailouts for everybody else, you gotta say to the people, suck it in and cope, buddy, suck it in and cope.
The global insurrection against banker occupation. People are angry and they've got their pitchforks, they've got their torches.
What the governments have done to turn from a democracy into an oligarchy. And we're seeing an oligarchy and in fact a kleptocracy emerge here. The governments are not representing the interest of their constituents.
Jamie Dimon said, too much is too much. Not all banks are the same. I just think that this constant refrain, bankers, 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 is just unproductive and unfair. People should just stop doing that.
You've been caught stealing money from Americans, stealing money from the globe, committing acts of financial terrorism, in bed with the terrorists. What do you mean enough is enough? Enough is not enough until you're in frickin' jail! Jail! I'm sick of Jamie Dimon. Enough is enough of Jamie Dimon. Somebody shut this guy down!
Off with their heads.
1,000 demonstrators chanting "Killers in uniform" lobbed firebombs at police.
This government minister was stoned by a mob.
It all makes perfect economic sense. I've calculated that you need to eat approximately 37 quadrillion Twizzlers each out of the next 12 months to balance the budget.
Dum dum, diddle dum dum, diddle dum dum, diddle dum dum.
When I was at secondary school in the early 70s, we were told that we were going to have a 3-day week leisure society. In school, they said computers are going to come, it's going to be a 3-day week work, leisure society. Sounded pretty good to me. And of course, there's been that money there and those things for us all to do that.
The turtle was very alert. When danger threatened him, he never got hurt. He knew just what to do.
Free papers are incredibly powerful means of communication. I think that's why we started Barebones as a free paper as well, because we wanted it as a bit of an antidote to all this, London Light doesn't exist, like Metro or the Evening Standard kind of, which are so powerful and across the board completely shit.
Our show, we make the news, and then we report the news that we made.
He did what we all must learn to do. You
and you
and you and you.
duck and cover.
Even a newspaper can save you from a bad burn.
I think there's a feeling that things are very bad at the moment. It's an interesting amount of bands I've interviewed in the past 6 months, from sort of British Sea Power to Zola Jesus to Cold Cave to Liars, all sort of saying quite honestly that they feel there's a sort of apocalyptic air at the moment. What is going to happen? Things feel like there's something really unpleasant around the corner, and I would say they're not mad conspiracy nuts, all these artists. They just are very troubled by the state of things, and by saying that and by discussing that in interviews, I think they're making a point.
I want my money back. I'm down here drowning in your fat. You got me on my knees praying for everything you lack. I ain't afraid of you.
Does the government really think they can win that war if the young people are like, fuck this? You can't beat that. You can't beat us. No, it's impossible. It's impossible. Like Public Enemy said, it takes a nation of... There's no fucking way.
I got a list of demands.
strong as they tell you they are. And the people are never as weak as they think they are early on.
The power that banks now exert over our affairs diminishes the power of democratic government to respond to what would be the real public interest of its citizens.
You must have a leader, because people are like sheep and they have to be led.
I think you know that I am there for you. And I do care so very, very, very much.
Call the police, I'm strapped to the teeth, and live on the disregard you ever believe. Calling the law, I'm fixing the draw. Alarming to what isn't seen, and calling for fraud. Calling them now, cause it's about to go down. I'm standing on the threshold of the ups and the downs. Call up the truth, because I'm about to break loose. I'm taking that concern, I'm breaking out of my noose. I got a list of demands, written on the palm of my hand.
Throughout history, many of our heroes have stood on the wrong side of the law, so to speak, you know? Shit that Martin Luther King or Malcolm and tons of our so-called heroes, when they first stood up and spoke, the shit they said was against the law. And so we can't really count on the lawmakers or the powers that be to see shit as it should be when it first happens.
%97% of money in existence was created by banks out of nothing. Every time a bank makes a loan, it creates new money, and then charges interest on it. The banks then make securities from this debt. This is known as a derivative, and allows the banks to create even more money out of nothing.
There's no rule of law, it's a kleptocracy, and they sell poo-poo with each other, and they call that, and that's the economy. American economy is based on selling poo-poo from one bank to another for fees, and then when it's too much poo-poo in the system, they declare bankruptcy and they demand a bailout, which then it's like getting a clean underwear. What are they doing to clean underwear? Oh, there's more American securities. There's more America. There's more American securities. Let's sell them. Let's get another $1 billion bonus. Oh, I just made myself another bonus. That's what Wall Street's all about. It's just selling poo-poo. That's it. It's worth nothing.
The creation of new money in this way leads to price inflation in the goods it was created for. This process of money creation is undemocratic and gives the banks power and wealth they do not deserve.
The thing I noticed about house prices, now in 1979 we made an LP on our own and we had to borrow a load of money, and it was probably getting on for 700 or 1,000 quid to make an album and press it ourselves. I seem to remember. And I know that the house we rented, next door the house was for sale for 3,500 quid, and you could get houses for around 2, which was proportionally a lot cheaper than it is now, because it still probably only costs you 15 or 2,000 quid to do your own album. I mean, if you do it the way we do it. And a house is substantially more now, rather than being 4,000 or 5,000. If we can inflate the value of these houses, and I can get you paying me back 3 times the amount I'm lending you, I'd much rather lend you $500,000 than 10,000. Because I got you right where I want you. I got your wife or your girlfriend where I want them, because they're going to have to work as well. You're not going to have one parent being able to support the family.
The systems that are operating currently are in a state of dissolution, and that people need to become aware of that and to stop living lies, really, and start facing up to the horrible bitter truths is that for the last 30 years we've been involved in a boom and bust economy that's got us nowhere and has failed. And what we've got now is a government that no one voted for attempting to repair it.
You can think of the financial sector as being wrapped around the real economy. almost like a parasite, and that's why it's been called parasitic for so long. The financial sector extracts interest from the economy. The property sector extracts economic rent, as do monopolies. Now, the key thing about parasites is that it's not simply that they extract nourishment from the host. The parasite takes over the host's brain to make it think it's part of the economy, to make it think it's part of the host's own body, and in fact that it's almost like a child of the host to be protected. And that's what the financial sector has done today.
The nationalisation of the banks logically doesn't follow any of the principles of free market capitalism whatsoever. It's pure hypocrisy. So what you're actually looking at is the maintenance of power.
You know what I'm doing, and it's not just a statement in terms of the lyrics themselves. I think that's really important, to actually make lyrics important again and what it's written about. So many people were worried about how it was sung, and they were only using music for escapism, you know, suddenly, and that's kind of what often happens when we're peaking in terms of wealth in the nation. And it happened in the 80s, and there was a lot of music where it was about what the musicians wore and that sort of thing, so it was very consumerist in that way. And so people forgot that you can use music as a way to express your issues with government, with society, with whatever, even if it's just talking about your own little problem.
I own you, so give us a song. Young goes talking to his world on the phone.
None of the parties offers a suitable form of government. They hope to organise a festival march to the City of London to demonstrate against the bankers and financiers who, they say, are the real people who control us.
Western democratic governments have become puppets to corporate and banking interests, violently subjugating dissent in their own populations, to maintain a corrupt and inefficient system. Technological progress has been used not to better people's lives, but to make a tiny minority extremely wealthy.
The city in its own right, the City of London Corporation, which is the local government authority for the City of London, is in itself a slightly alien political entity in Britain. It is not just another municipal authority. It has all of its own rules that are very different from what apply in the rest of Britain.
Certainly all the political parties rely on donations, and I think traditionally that's where the Conservatives have got most of their money from, is from the city.
London is a tale of two cities. I mean, London has a mayor, currently Boris Johnson, and it has a Lord Mayor who's sitting in the Guildhall. There have been reformers in the past who have tried to say what we need is one government for London. We need to expand the city to cover, instead of 9,000 residents, to cover whatever the population is, 8 million or so Londoners, and you have one single London government. The Labour Party, for much of the last century, had a pledge in its manifesto to abolish the City of London Corporation and merge it into the rest of London. And Tony Blair, as part of his bid for power, he decreed that that pledge would be abolished, and he made a deal with the city, and he made a promise to reform it instead, and that reform ended up being an expansion of the corporate vote. It's a totally bizarre story, and I mean, how many people in Britain really know about this?
What is Sir Tony going to do if JP Morgan goes bust?
He's a surreptitiously stealing money from people kind of a sir.
Well, of course, because he consults for JP Morgan at $2 million a year, and that goes back to the exit plan for the politically corrupt class. In the UK, they're allowed to walk out of Downing Street, walk across the street, and walk into JP Morgan, say, give me $2 million a year.
Incoming!
People are becoming informed. And then at the same time, people like Julian Assange are threatening to really fucking inform us about what's going on, you know? And there is a reaction, there's a response to that information. And once people know, once people learn, then it becomes inevitable that people have to move and grow and change accordingly. Technology is extremely empowering. And the thing is, they can't control it, you know? Because these kids are born like OS 13, you know, like it's beyond their control. And it's always been like that. That's nothing new. It's always been like that. That's how hip hop came to be. That's how so many things have come about.
Something that's come up a lot is the fact that these cuts are they have to happen. You know, they're unhappy truth. They're necessary and rah rah rah. They're necessary, but they'll be done fairly, and everyone will be hurt just the same, which just isn't true. There's 25 billion that could be taken in by tax to cut the deficit, which isn't, either through people avoiding them through illegal means or through exploiting tax loopholes. In 2005, I think it was, Philip Green paid himself £1.2 billion, and because his business isn't held in his name but his wife's and can be channeled through lots of different offshore accounts, he escaped paying £300 million in tax.
Settle down. Now, one thing we forgot when we came in, what did we forget was we did not take the register. So, Jenkins! Very good. Now, hands up anybody who isn't here.
There is what some of us call the Philip Green defence, which is no tax was avoided because no tax was due. But what he doesn't say is that no tax was due because I put a lot of work into making sure that no tax was due. UK Uncut was a new phase for me. It's something that kind of exploded onto the streets, which is absolutely fantastic. I see this as we're just at a fairly early stage of a process, and UK Uncut is looking at one particular aspect of this system, which is corporate tax avoidance, which is a very important part of it. But what is really out there is something much bigger than that, much more all-encompassing. Tax havens have been completely under the radar for such a long time, partly because there has been this perception that these are just places for a few kind of mafiosi and, you know, celebrity tax dodgers and you know, a few kind of spivs. The fact is that these are now the heart of the global economy. The figures are absolutely staggering. I mean, half of world trade, in a way, passes through tax havens. Britain has a particular role in this global offshore system. I mean, there's no dispute, really, that Britain is responsible for about half of the tax havens in the world, and Britain is a tax haven in its own right. Every multinational corporation pretty much these days will have offshore subsidiaries that they will use for various reasons. Cutting down on their tax bills is usually top of the reasons. Recently, the Mail on Sunday did a great little investigation about how many offshore subsidiaries the UK banks have, and the top three, Lloyds, Barclays and RBS, had 550 offshore subsidiaries. It's always the banks. The banks are right in there. So this is the heart of the financial system. Governments of OECD countries have found themselves curiously reluctant to crack down properly on tax havens. And when you look at the amount of illicit money coming in under the table, it's hardly surprising it's been so difficult to crack down. I think now that there are a lot more people talking about how rotten this system is, a lot more people are feeling uncomfortable in these jobs. And so I'm hopeful that there'll be a lot more revelations and people coming forwards to explain what the system really looks like.
Digital money, which makes up 97% of the money supply, comes into circulation as the result of bank loans. When these loans are repaid, the money supply shrinks. In order to effectively maintain the illusion of growth, total bank-created debt must forever increase. If governments are unwilling to go further into debt, someone else, such as students, must take on more debt to supply the economy with its medium of exchange. This is the way the debt-based monetary system is designed.
If you're leaving a university with a £30,000 or £40,000 debt, you have only one choice, and that's to get a fucking job straight away. You don't have the luxury of taking a year or two off to freak out and carry on your music project that you were doing, or to kind of to do an unpaid job that maybe in the long run is going to be a more interesting life for you. It's just, with that scale of debt, it's total control, and that's a really frightening thing.
Governments are actively promoting a system which needs ever-increasing debt, while at the same time pretending that debt needs to be reduced. In fact, they are just shifting the debt burden. Banks should not have the power to create the medium of exchange.
I lived in a village, and nearly everyone I lived on the same street as worked in offices in out of town, and they all, had houses that were bought with mortgages, cars that were bought on loans, and that was a dream. You could become middle class as long as you could sign the right papers. And that's really how the power is maintained, by keeping people in a level of debt, in a deficit, a disadvantage.
They're talking about instituting $100 trillion of new debt. That's $100 trillion of worthless cocktail napkins with smeared lipsticks that says $100 trillion on it, exchanged amongst corrupt bankers for fees to pay for these godforsaken overpriced hookers.
A lot of the time it seems that probably politics in this country hasn't changed for hundreds of years.
Where is the line? What's the point where it is okay to have violent protests? What did I watch? I watched V for Vendetta yesterday, and at the end of V for Vendetta, once they've stopped doing all the main credits, the song comes on, and at the beginning of it, it's a protest song. At the beginning of it, there's this quote where it says, "How dare you tell somebody to have non-violent protest when you're being violent towards them?" And I find that really, really interesting. I think there is a place for people to be violent.
Yes,
and because I went on the biggest march this country's ever had, which was against the Iraq War. And that was the point after that where I thought, fuck it. I actually feel helpless. I feel like a baby living in this country that can do nothing.
I think it's funny how they interpret violence. Violence apparently no longer means a human being harming a human being. It means vandalising property. So I guess the smashed Treasury window is much worse than Alfred Meadows being left with brain damage and having to go to hospital because of police-induced head injuries, or Jodie McIntyre being humiliated and pulled out of his wheelchair. I think the media is what's supposed to skewed values in terms of what constitutes violence.
Men, the enemy has asked for it. Let him have it. Seek no quarter, nor give any beyond reason. Be firm, be just, and Godspeed you all.
Stop! If you're in the airport, stop! Listen to me right now. Buy silver and crash JP Morgan. And this is how you take down a giant. You find that vulnerability. You go in there hard. In JP Morgan's case, they're short silver. That's their vulnerability. You hit them there really hard, and they will go down like a sack of beep. That's the only way. You gotta think of them like a vampire. And you gotta drive that silver stake through their heart. They're short billions of contracts of silver. Their balance sheet's at risk. The more silver you take off the balance sheet, the greater the probability they'll go bankrupt. And then we're down one terrorist in the world. You gotta do it.
Snorting fire.
Oh boy, you say, rubbing your hands together, that's for me. That's right up my alley.
This, then, is the enemy. Primitive, murderous, and fanatical. this war machine, this empire be beaten. But let us make no mistake, for total victory, we must make total sacrifice.
Then cowboy, change your ways today, or with us you will ride.
And blast.
The devil's herd across the endless sky.
Still early in the game for Jamie Dimon. He may go the way of Jimmy Kane. Flat frickin' broke.
Suck it in and cope, buddy. Suck it in and cope.
The politicians are afraid of you, of me, of the ordinary people. They're afraid of us.
Wherever they are hiding, we're going to find them, and we're going to root them out, we're going to smoke them out, and we're going to drive a silver and gold spike through their hearts so that they can't breathe another fiat currency's breath.
Something like 2% of the world's population have ultimate control over the money which controls my life, your life, everybody's life. If that money was in our hands instead of their hands, then in fact the world would be a much more happy place.
They've shut down the banks, and now they're looking for those bankers, and they're going to string them up by their thumbs, and they're going to beat them to within an inch of their life.
I think that making you suffer enough will ease some of my pain.